Hi there everybody and welcome to Sean Cameron Photographic. Thank you so much for joining me once again. What have I got here? It's the Canon R6. Now the idea of this video is to test this camera, and I know I'm a Nikon guy, but I'm going to be taking it to the same wildlife park as I took the Nikon Z7 II. And if you haven't seen that video, why haven't you seen that video? Go and watch that video. Watch this one first though. Anyway, I'm going to try and recreate those same images and scenarios. Now, if you remember when I tested that camera, I used the FTZ adapter to attach a 70-200 f2.8 and my 300mm f2.8. And yet again, to make it fair, I plan to do the same thing with the R6. Except I couldn't find anybody daft enough to lend me a 300mm f2.8, and I can't blame them, bearing in mind I actually dropped it in my last video. But I have got a 70-200 f2.8 from my old mate Jamie. Cheers buddy. Now that will be connected via the Canon EF EOS R adapter. So what do I think about this camera? First impressions. Well, it's virtually identical in size and weight to the Nikon Z series. And I tell you what, I love where they've placed the 4 dials. There was a Nikon user, I've got to say, they don't always do what I expect them to do. But basically, the large rear dial there deals with exposure compensation. The top dial, that one there, deals with ISO, and the front controls the aperture or shutter speed or whatever setting you have this dial set to. Now, there's loads of dials and there's loads of settings here, and it would take me an age to go through them all. And all I want to do is go and show you what I did when I used it. So let's put it all together and see what happened. Now, I'm going to attach my Atomos Ninja so you can see the settings and the focus and everything I'm doing, because I think you guys like me doing that. And I certainly enjoy quite showing you what I can see. So let's have a look. Before I went to the wildlife park, I thought a bit of familiarisation with the R6 would be a great move. So bring out my dear old dog, Gizmo, especially as my wife says I don't photograph him enough. 2 boxes ticked, and who says I can't multitask? I hadn't yet attached my Atomos Ninja, which is a monitor recorder. So we've just got these images, but my first impression was, wow, that eye tracking's quick. I mean, really glued onto the subject. I'm going to use that phrase in this video a lot, I reckon. However, as I discovered later on, that doesn't necessarily mean that the image stays in focus. Ooh, controversial and so soon? Stick with it, Canon fans. There's quite a lot I liked and quite a bit I'm jealous about. As the sun went behind a wispy cloud, the Canon seemed to take offence and completely overcompensated. It's an easy tweak in post-processing though, as of the understandably overblown whites. The old boy was starting to nod off in the reappearing sun, and that seemed an appropriate time to wrap up the test. Though I really enjoyed the feel of the Canon R6. I felt somehow that I was in a safe pair of hands. It felt competent and reliable. And talking of hands, it did feel beautifully balanced with the 70-200 2.8 and seemed to make the lens feel almost quite light. One thing though, for goodness sake, disable the continuous autofocus in the AF menu, sub-menu 1. It will permanently look for something to focus on, even if you stop shooting and have a chat with someone. And I tell you what, that is a real battery drainer. We arrived at Marwell and I was looking forward to seeing how the R6 performed once again. And I eagerly attached the Atomos. First stop, the rhinos. Well, actually no, first stop, tried to get the Atomos Ninja to work with the camera. As much as we went through the menus, Googled and swore, I couldn't achieve the same setup that I used with the Nikon Z series and the Sony. All I wanted was to have the viewfinder working simultaneously with the Ninja, not one or the other. I only seem to have a couple of menu options for this and neither made any difference. It appears if you attach a monitor via the HDMI, it becomes the default viewer. The only way I was going to complete this test was either to photograph looking through the monitor, like a teenager through their phone, or disconnect the Ninja's cable every time I wanted to use the viewfinder. Seriously unsatisfactory. Let me know in the comments if there's a better workaround. I'm hoping that there is, or if I've got it wrong, or if there's been a firmware update, because otherwise for me, it's a complete game changer. While I'm talking about the menu, I was initially disappointed by what I thought was a lack of options. Now I notice the numbered sub-menus. It's actually a really straightforward system to allow fast access to an in-depth menu. Anyway, back to the images. I'm of course using the animal eye tracking focus mode because it's what everybody's talking about, especially when comparing to the Nikon Z6 II and 7 II. On this occasion the tracking is on the Rhino, and even at this distance it's working hard to choose the face. It does find the Rhino's eye, though it's also very keen on the Rhino's ear, and why wouldn't it be? It's probably the cutest bit of the Rhino. I really wish that I'd pressed the info button a few more times to give me additional information on the screen, and it would have made doing this video a whole lot easier. Whilst I'm on the subject of the info screen, does anyone else find those orange logos depicting the dials just a little bit tacky? Come on Canon, you produce a stunning camera, but those tangerine slices, honestly. Time to take some shots, and I'm trying to take them using the monitor, which as you can expect is pretty unstable, and although the shoulder of the Rhino is fairly sharp, the head's quite soft. I suspect that the focus altered its position as I pressed the shutter button, but we'll see as we go on. The monitor powered down and the viewfinder woke up, and much better shots this time. I spotted a nearer Rhino and the eye tracking was straight on it. I risked a couple of shots using the unstable method. Took the first just as the eye was lost, but then the second nailed it. Both are acceptably sharp though. Next we're at the zebra enclosure. And you can see that I've disconnected the Ninja's lead so I can use the viewfinder. I got a couple of shots that show off that glorious, if a little unnatural for the Serengeti backdrop, whilst my videographer is struggling to zoom and change focus. I think I know what the zebra is going to do next, so I quickly reconnect the HDMI lead to record the action. Not being stood in a hole would have really helped the photos and video. It's his favourite mud pit, presumably. I'm talking about the zebra, by the way, not my videographer. And down he goes. Perfect opportunity for a candid shot as the tracking has still found his face. Back behind the camera, and it's an opportunity to see, one, I seriously needed a haircut and a shave, but more importantly, number two, you can see the problem with taking photos like this. The lens is bobbing up and down like a fishing boat stuck in a storm. Well, maybe not that bad, but you get the idea. The tracking system is doing really well at keeping up with the action though. It's showing an unhealthy fetish for ears. I think it shows how far technology has come that it can continue to focus on anything with all those legs flying around at this distance. Oh God, there goes the ears again. I've got to say, I'm absolutely gutted not to have captured that dirt flying around. It would have really added movement to the image. But that's down to me, isn't it? Finally, the action's over and I feel exhausted just watching it. Leave that ear alone, it's embarrassing. Oh, here we go again. No, we really are finished this time, and one last opportunity for an odd ear shot. So how can we match that? I know, the meerkats. First shot nailed and the animal eye tracking is glued on once again. There you go, there's that phrase. And despite my position being as stable as a wobbly jelly, second shot nailed too. Let's hope that the in-camera image stabilisation is working. Let's just crop into those last two still images. They're still pretty sharp. Are we happy? You let me know. You remember what I said, that it's just because the focus point is on the subject, it doesn't necessarily mean that the image will be in focus. Well, here's one of those times. When we zoom in, despite the focus point being firmly on the eye, unfortunately the whole head is soft. The sharpness is lost at the shoulder. Let me repeat that sequence in case you missed it the first time. Shutter speed 1000, aperture just 2.8. There was no movement from the meerkat, and this wasn't a one-off. By no means was it a regular occurrence, but enough to notice. Perhaps if there were more time I could have fine-tuned the focus, tried a newer lens. I don't know, I'm just telling you how it is. Now of course this isn't a conclusive test or even scientific, but it is judging it in the real wide world, and I'm judging this camera to the highest standards set by those who say it's the best. Next to Sony of course. Anyway, back to the images. I'm back to the traditional style of holding the camera, and these two, both taken at 3.2 and 3.5, are perfect. You don't need to zoom in. Trust me, I tell you they're pin sharp and just what I'd expect. Maybe there's a couple of answers in those pictures. Don't know. Anyway, now this was an interesting little message. It came up every time I switched the camera off. I'm guessing it's in case I leave it on the garden table with the lens pointed skyward. I've heard that the sun can burn the sensor if it's uncovered. I wanted to test the camera with objects in the way, so I chose wallabies. Unfortunately, the wallaby stood up and rather ruined the experiment. Never work with children and animals, they say. Still, apart from the posts behind it, the images are sharp and the colours are perfect. Those sharp-eyed amongst you will note that I'm occasionally playing with the auto ISO. It's not something I generally use with a Nikon, but I've tested it, so I thought I'd better do the same with the Canon. Actually, it works well. The Nikons can be a little bit underexposed with their choice. The Canon seems to be pretty perfect. Oh, that's painful to say. Well, the wallaby has made his feelings known, so I guess it's time to move on. For this section, we step into the low light and a higher ISO of 4000. Not too noisy at all. The colours aren't washed out too badly either. And just to prove it's not a one-off, second shots are good and too. Aren't they cute? I wanted to see how the camera deals with black. Some cameras lose a lot of detail. This certainly doesn't. It's lost nothing in the shadows. So, I suppose I need to come to some kind of conclusion, don't I? Or at least a summing up at the very least. Okay, firstly, I love where the buttons and dials are, and I've totally fallen in love with that large dial at the back. The handling feels well designed and comfortably secure. The menu layout is first class and it's really easy to negotiate. But, and it's a big but for me, going exclusively to the Atomos Ninja by default without being able to use it and the EVF together completely tainted my experience. And maybe my expectations were unreasonable given the furore surrounding the focus capabilities of the Canon and the Sony cameras. Maybe I judged unfairly, I'm sure you'll let me know. But so much has been made of them, I guess I expected more. Also, I wasn't taking anything fast moving, which is where its focus tracking fame lies. The images are good, not necessarily better than the Z6 II though. Now I accept that I may have missed a setting or two somewhere in the camera, and I only had a day to play, and one heck of a lot to fit in that one day. The depth of this camera is huge and I didn't even get to scratch the surface. However, what I saw I liked, and I can see why Canon owners are so enthusiastic about it. What is clear though, is that I need to do a follow-up to this video to test that tracking further. I can't leave it like this, I'm too confused by the results. I can't see how the focus point can be on the eye but still be soft. A follow-up video will change things around and test what could have gone wrong, lens, camera, the way I was using it, or even an adapter. I hope you're looking forward to that as much as me. I'm sure you have your own ideas. Thank you so much for joining me, and if you like this video, please don't forget to like it. Thank you to everyone that subscribed, but if you don't want to miss the next video, you know what to do. Click that subscribe button. Take care, keep taking photographs, and until next time, bye.